Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to intro the whole idea of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to invite my lovely wife to come up here and tell you stories about how awful of a human being I am. So that way when I come back up afterwards, all the women in the room will hate me, and most of the men in the room will just feel just pity for me. So the idea of marriage is in the Catholic Church is one of a sacrament, which means that marriage is one of the 7 privileged channels whereby God's divine grace enters into our lives. Now, if you've been baptized, you've received that first initial entryway into the kingdom of heaven. And if you got confirmed, you are now taken from being a citizen to a soldier, nonviolent of course, in the kingdom of heaven. And when you receive the Eucharist, you become so filled with the divine life of Jesus Christ that your adoption as a son or daughter of God is made complete in the Eucharist, right? But then the church gives us 2 sacraments called the sacraments at the service of the community. And one is the priesthood and the other one is matrimony. And what this means for us in this epic worldview that the church has is that as God breaks into human history, as that intersection between the divine and human history and God's love, as that intersects into human life, that the sacrament of matrimony is God's vision for ordinary love to become extraordinary. In fact, it's for natural love to be filled up with the divine, so that those who enter into the sacrament of matrimony are no longer just 2 people getting married, but there are 3. There is the husband, the wife, and the Holy Spirit that unites them. That this is not just a human level commitment. Because I'm going to be honest with you, as a human being, I don't know about you guys, but I'm one of those. As a human being, I am miserable at dating. I am so happy I am off the market. Let me tell you about how stupid I am at dating. One time in college, I had a crush on a girl, and I thought she was like way out of my league. And then 6 months later, I go on this mission trip, and it's not you, honey, it's a just deal. I'm going to read those productions later.
It's almost my turn.
But no, this girl goes, hey, how come you never followed up with what's her name? And I'm like, what do you mean followed up with? And she said, well, you went on that one date with her. And I'm like, what do you mean I went on a date with her? I had no clue that we went out on a date. That's how stupid I am. That this girl who was a friend of mine, I was like, no, she never liked me, way out of my league. And she's like, I don't understand, what's wrong with me? How come go very well? So that's not how she sounded at all. But so I am so horrible at dating, and you're going to hear a wonderful example in our love life, in our life about how horrible I am. But the reason why I was so bad is the same reason why marriage is in the state that it is today. Marriage is falling apart, and I'm not talking about like the hot button issues of today. I just mean normal marriage is falling apart. It's committing suicide at an alarming rate. 1 out of every 2 marriages end in divorce. Some say the statistics are about 2.5 or 3, but even if you were to multiply that by 10, that still would be a disaster. There are more children today being born outside of marriage than are being born inside of marriage in the United States of America. Now, I mean, and if that's how you were born, if that's how you came to the world, that's not on you. But what I'm saying is, we're losing sight quickly of the beauty and the gift and, quite frankly, the sacrifice of being in love. Being in love demands a sacrifice, for love knows only 2 words, you and always. So Archbishop Fulton Sheen said. He said, love knows only 2 words, you and always. And so as we grow up, our culture does not prepare us for marriage. I had a buddy who played college baseball. Right? He practiced 7 times a day, 2 hours before classes, 2 hours after class, and somewhere during the day he had to hit the weight room. And he did that, and that was for college ball. He knew he wasn't going to become a professional. And he said, I sit there, and right before he got married, he said, I thought, of all the training I did for baseball, and I received 0 training. I received anti-training to get married. And I want to give you this little bit of advice before I bring up my wife. The idea is this: the person that you are right now is awesome, but God is preparing you to be someone more, to be someone better, not to be someone different. As in, God doesn't want you to become, a carbon copy of someone else or something stupid like that. God wants you to be holy. God wants you to be the best version of yourself, because here's the deal. The person that you're going to marry, and the majority of you, maybe not all of you, hopefully a handful of you are going to become priests and religious. Maybe some of you will devote your life to a great cause, to your own adventure book, and be single for the rest of your life. I know for some people that's weird to think about, but right now in your life, if you're single, let me hear it. All the single ladies say, hey. That was pathetic. All the single fellas say, hey. That was scary and yet a little bit exciting. When we encounter our singleness, our culture actually makes us kind of feel bad for being alone. But I want you right now to realize that if you are single, if you are quote-unquote alone, you have been given one of the greatest gifts. Because in this season of your life, you can devote yourself wholeheartedly, single-mindedly, absolutely towards becoming the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Now, in my single life, when I was dating my now wife, but then my girlfriend Shannon, I was the youth minister here, I was living a life very much for myself. And so when I was living my life for myself, she was a convenient accessory into my life. And when things got real, and you're going to hear her side of the story, and that's why you're all going to hate me, when things got real, I got scared. Because I saw her love as limiting my freedom. And that's what happens in our culture today. If we want to turn around those numbers of divorce, if we want to start turning around the hurt, if we want to start turning around these things, we have to embrace these relationships, realizing that though I'm getting married and this is going to make me happy, I don't live this for myself. I live it for another. So let's invite my wife up here.
Thank you. Part of the story I'm about to tell, some of you adults may have heard a version. I'm now going to tell you the correct version of said story. But it's not all that bad, because obviously it worked out. So please don't puncture our tires or anything before we leave, because we have to go all the way back to Sugar Land tonight. It'll be a really long drive. But anyways, so this is going back a long time, okay? So Michael and I have known each other, we figured it out, like a decade, right? So we've known each other now a decade. And about 5.5, 6 of those, we were dating. Okay, and that's, a really long time to date someone. And we went to a lot of dinners and a lot of movies and a lot of youth group functions and stuff together, because I was a youth minister down in Sugar Land at the time while he was up here. And all the good things that happened here at St. Anthony were because he stole them from my church down in Sugar Land. So that's okay, I'm over it. And anyways, but what I didn't know is that over the time of our dating thing, this is what makes him less of a bad person and more of a fair playing field, is that I started to unknowingly put all my eggs in one basket, okay? So I started putting everything that I had into the relationship that I had with who you know as Gomer. I call him Michael. I've graduated. And so, anyways, so unknowingly, I moved here. I'm not from here. I'm from St. Louis. I thought I was going to die in St. Louis, live my whole life in St. Louis. And I'm like the one person in my family that people were like, you don't live in St. Louis? Like, are you okay? Were you kidnapped? And I was like, no, I moved of my own free will. But I moved, so I relocated because I believed in our relationship. I believed from the beginning that our relationship was a gift. There was always something about him that was different. Define that as you want, but there was always something about him that was different, and it wasn't something like, it was not love at first sight, but there was something about him that always drew me to him, and something that I wanted to know more. And then eventually got to the point that I wanted him in my life. Like, I wanted him to always be a part of my life in some way, shape, or form. But throughout our dating, we broke up a few 6, 7, 8 times. Anyways, and as we were trying to figure each other out, but every time we would break up and we get back together, I would put like another egg in the basket. So soon, not only did his city become my city, but his friends became my friends. Our work became the same work. We started doing joint things together. So it basically became them. My life was already his life. So much so that it got to the point you're like, this is, like, we really have to move into something more permanent, because now it's getting awkward, because there's nothing else we can do. And so one fateful evening, I mustered up the courage to drive from Sugar Land up to his apartment in 290, and I knocked on his door, and I was going to put it all on the line, because I knew I loved him, I knew he was a gift from God, and I knew he was meant for me. I was purely 100% confident in that. And so I was going to him to put it all on the line, saying, I'm willing to leave my job tomorrow. I will go wherever he wants to go. I will be whoever he wants me to be, if he would marry me. So I went to his apartment, and I said that to him, and his reply was no. Right? And I remember sitting in the chair in his room looking at him like in complete shock. And in one fell swoop, my whole heart was like completely shattered. And then I said to him, because, I just wanted to make sure he knew what he was missing. And so I said, if I get up out of this chair and walk out of this apartment, I'm never coming back. Yes. Amen. That was basically how I felt. And so, so I told him, if I get out of this chair and I leave this apartment, I'm never coming back. And he just looked at me and he said, I'm sorry. And then became the challenge of getting out of the said chair and making it out of the apartment with some form of composure before, the snot ball came into effect. And so I got up out of the chair, ran out of his apartment, ran past his two roommates who happened to work for me down in Sugar Land at the time, so that was really awkward. And so I just ran by my couch and ran out of the apartment and got into my car, and somehow I made it to Sugar Land before the snot balls started happening. And so, but for the next several weeks, I wasn't sad, I was just really angry. And I became angry at Michael for letting me walk out of his life. I became angry at God for giving me such a gift just to take it away. And it became this thing that I couldn't get over, that why would God give me something so great, so fantastic, and why would he fill me with such confidence in this relationship only to have to take it away? And so the Lord, he was working in me as much as I would allow him to do so. And I really entered into a very dark place. I really put God on the outside because I didn't trust him anymore. I didn't want him in my life. Like, he took away the one good thing that I had. And I slowly realized that my entire life was falling apart because my entire life revolved around him. And so all this great stuff that I had now was we were divorced. Because and our friends were like our children who had to spend some time with dad and sometimes with mom. And it was really awkward, because you were like, oh, tonight's a Gomer night, so don't tell her that we're doing anything, so it was really awkward, and it was really sad and really hurtful. And so I did get to a point where I was willing to hear what the Lord had to say, and so I went to prayer. And I made a commitment. I said, fine, I'll spend an hour with you a day, and that's all you get. Because God does well on limits. And so I started going to adoration every day, and I went to adoration, and I got this image of a little girl in the corner of a very dark room. And of course I was like, well, that's uplifting, Lord, thank you so much for your time. And so I left adoration that day, and I'm like, this is going to be pointless and stuff. And so then I was like, no, I promise I'd do this, and I really don't like feeling like this, and I'm hoping against all hope that there is something greater out there than what I'm feeling right now. And so I went back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back, and I kept getting the same image, and I'm like, what are you trying to show me here? This is really depressing. And then one time I realized that little girl was me, and I was sitting in a corner of a very dark room, and I was wrapped in chains. Again, very uplifting. And so it was really too much for me to handle, and so I left adoration, and I took some time off because I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for what you have to show me. Then I went back, and I realized every time I went back, something new happened in the image. Eventually there was a light And you know how like a light is really, we go to bed at night, you might have a night light, I won't tell anybody, but if you have a night light, like when you first turn off the light, it's like, like really dark, but then like you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're like, it's like a spotlight, So that's what it was like. It was this little light outside the door, and it was shining inside, so I could see. And so then I could see my chains, and I could see that my chains had the names of people on them, and I could see that my chains also had the names of my sin. But I was just still holding fast in that corner. And then eventually I could see that there was a man sitting in the room with me. And then I realized that man was Jesus. And then I saw that Jesus had his hand out to me. He was just looking at me very lovingly. And he had all the keys that would free me from this darkness, that would free me from these chains. And all I had to do was take them. But I didn't want them because I didn't trust him. He had already ruined my life. This great plan that I had with Michael, he already took that away from me, so why would I want what he had to offer? My chains stunk. They were awful. They were heavy. I was miserable. But I knew them, and so I gained comfort in them. And then, of course, what do when you're like at the lowest of your low? Is you run home to your mommy. And so I called my mom on a Friday, hysterical, and she flew me home that Monday. And so I was home in St. Louis, and then we got a phone call that very good friends of ours, their daughter died. And so my family had to step up and help with this other family who was mourning the loss of their daughter. And they turned to me because I'm number 2 of 7, and anyone who comes from a semi-big family, team our size or less, or greater if you're a Duggar. But anyways, you know that especially if you're one of the oldest, if something happens in your family, you have to step up to the plate and you have to take over. And it's not that it's like a job, it's that you want to because this is your family and this is kind of your role in the family. But at that time, I felt nothing. I had nothing, and I was so wrapped in my chains that I couldn't help them. And so I had to humbly go to adoration, and I had to go in front of the Lord, and I say, I don't want the keys. Can you lessen them a little, like loosen them a little bit so that I can help my family? And he said, Shannon, it doesn't work that way. He's like, take them, and I promise you, it's going to be okay. I was like, I didn't have an option because I had to help. I had to be there for my family. I had to give them something. And so I took the keys, I undid the chains, and it was very freeing but very frightening. But then slowly over time, like the Lord was awesome, and he started to return things to me that I didn't know, that I even had really missed. Like friends started coming back into my life in new and great ways. My relationship with God, my relationship with my church, my relationship with my teens, all started to come back. And then even my relationship with Michael, through some, no minor miracle, we started, but anyways, but God started giving all of this back to me, and eventually, obviously, Michael and I got married. And then a year after we got married, we gave birth to our first, I gave birth, he was there. He was way over there, but he was there. And I remember the greatest moment I think of my life was the next morning, because I was on too many drugs the day she was born. So I really don't remember a whole lot. But I remember the next morning, I was looking at her, I was holding her in my arms, and I was really overcome with emotion. I blame you, Jonathan. Anyways, but I just looked at her, and she was so perfect, and she was so beautiful, and everything I ever wanted came true. I found the man of my dreams. He was a gift from God. I was finally a mom. I was 30 at the time, so I'm not... Anyways, and I waited a long time for that. And then I just got this great sense that the Lord was like, Shannon, I promised you the world, and I've given it to you. Like, do you promise to trust me from here on out? And I said, of course I do, because I realized in that moment, if anything in my life had been different, anything at all, including all the breakups and all the anger and all, the frustration and the sin and then the great times too, she might not be here. And I wasn't willing to trade her for any of that. So I was so grateful for that. And in the end, the Lord just plainly revealed to me that unless I find myself in him first, unless I can find my identity through him, then I'm going to continue to be miserable. And it doesn't mean that once I find my identity in him that my life is going to be a piece of cake, but it just means that there will always be peace and that he will always be with me. And praise God that he's given me someone who shares that ideal and someone who I am privileged to walk this earth with until the day one of us dies. And hope it's me first, because I don't know if I could live a day on this planet without him here. So Thank you.
I love you. Yeah, so I'm the big dumb animal that broke up with her. But what you have to understand was that moment that she was in our apartment, in my apartment, not our apartment, the moment she was in my apartment, when she was saying this stuff to me, I just remember saying to her, like, yes, I love you, yes, I want to marry you, but I'm not right now. And she just kept saying, it has to be now. And it's so funny, whenever we tell this story, like when I get to go first, people are like, oh, it's so great, it was wonderful. And then when she goes first, we were just like, why are you even a youth minister? You know, like, why are you allowed to be? So, but when she was in that apartment, I was telling her, like, I love you, I want to marry you, I'm just not ready right now. Because in the back of my mind, and I didn't know this at the time, I was prizing freedom above everything else. I was prizing freedom at the top, and even love itself came second. And there are so many people in this world, in our culture, that never have the opportunity to take love and to make love first. And you got to add that word at the end. To make love first. To put love first in your life. I have friends that have never had that opportunity. I have siblings that have never had that opportunity. But the thing that got me to get that opportunity was the worst suffering I have ever gone through in my entire life. I was a youth minister. I loved Jesus. I have a lot of books about Jesus-y stuff in an office that smells of rich mahogany. I should have all the answers. Not only should I have all the answers, but I should be doing it all correctly. But the crazy thing is, growing in holiness is just that. It's growth. Sometimes growth hurts. Sometimes you have to prune the vine in order to get more fruit, in order to get better growth, bigger growth. And what I didn't know was my own childishness was preventing me from entering into the world of being an adult, of taking responsibility for my love and my relationships. And so this is what ended up happening was when she walked out the door, you know, I was hurt too because I was like, I don't understand why she's leaving. Like, obviously you all know why she left, but I was like, I told her that I love her and that I want to marry her, but just not now. What's wrong with that? You know, and what ain't wrong with that? But what you don't know is I proposed to her 3 or 4 times after that in order to win her back. And every one of those times she told me no. Right? The epic first time she goes, and now it's me telling you no. I was like, no! I entered into a depression that was so deep and so dark. I had my friends that would try to argue me out of a depression, and I would always argue back, and they would just say, listen, man, I know you're going through a dark time, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I would say every time, yes, there is, and it's an oncoming train, and there's nowhere to go. But this is what I learned. This is what I learned. Now, if you're a dumb person, you don't learn from your own mistakes. If you're a smart person, you learn from your own mistakes. But if you're a wise person, I think I said this in confirmation class, you learn from other people's mistakes. So come, children, learn from my stupidity, right? So not only can you not have a successful marriage if you put your personal freedom above the commitment of love. You cannot have a successful marriage if you do that. But also, if you do not have your own life in order, you don't have to be perfect, but have it in order. Have a trajectory of where you're going. And I'm not talking career. But my prayer life had fallen. I had never prayed more in my entire life than when me and Shannon were broken up. I was saying rosaries. It would take me 45 to 55 minutes to get into work every day, and I would have like 37 rosaries done by the time I'd walk in the door. That was a speed prayer. I was doing all this stuff. I would sit in adoration. I would do all this, and I'm just like, how can I do this? And this is what ended up happening. I had always sought, you know, a lot of us, we picture the perfect wedding, perfect marriage, whatever, perfect family. Now, as a dude, I don't really sit there and like dream of my Cinderella or Prince Charming. But I didn't really picture it. But I always thought, thought if I wasn't called to be a priest, which I thought for most of my life I was, if I wasn't called to be a priest, I'm going to be the most awesome dad ever. Like, that was my goal. Awesome husband, awesome dad. But the thing was, wishful thinking does not equal hope. Hope is grounded in reality. You don't just win the lottery and become a good dad and become a good husband. You don't just wake up one day, say the words "I do," and everything falls into place. I was a child, and children aren't made for marriage. It's illegal in most states, right? I was a child, and God, through the midst of my intense, acute suffering, spiritual, emotional darkness, God burned away my childishness. And that's why I'm convinced in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, St. Paul's great hymn to love. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, love does not boast, love does not, like all these beautiful things about love. He says at the end, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I taught like a child, I thought like a child, I spoke like a child, and I acted like a child. And then he says, but when I became a man, I put aside childish things. And that's what that summer of purgatory taught me. I wasn't going through hell, I was going through purgatory because I still had hope. And my hope at the end of this, the person that God was making me, was not making me the man that Shannon, I wasn't preparing myself so that finally Shannon would marry me. Or take me back, as it were, with my begging. Constantly. The person I had become was a man that could stand on his own 2 feet and give glory to God. You see, if you aren't building the firm foundation under your feet, rooted and centered on Jesus Christ, if you aren't building your life on the rock that is Jesus Christ, when the storms come, and they will come, when the rains fall, and they will fall, when the winds blow up against the house, and the winds will come, if you are not built on the rock, your house will crumble. Your house will crumble because it's all on you. It was all on me. And when I made it all about me, guess what I did? I fell apart in that apartment room. So now we look towards Christian marriage. What is Christian marriage? Christian marriage is God taking something natural, something common to every single culture in the world, and He elevates it to the level of divine life. And God takes the marriage, the union between a man and a woman, and He fills it up with His power, so that the man can love the woman and disregard himself. And so that the woman can love the man and disregard herself. Not love as give and take, but love as pure gift and reception. See, in our culture, we added the phrase "and take" to the definition of love, as love is about giving yourself away. We added "and take" because we're terrified of a love where, what if they don't love us back? What if I get nothing in return? So we added "and take" because of our fear, but I'm going to tell you this. Perfect love casts out fear. That's what 1 John says. Perfect love casts out fear. The same is true for marriage. I was terrified of what a life lived for one other person forever, what that meant for me. But again, I was being childish because I let my fear dictate my choice. And that's a general life principle. Whenever you're looking what college you want to go to, what team you want to try out for, all this different stuff, if you let your fears dictate your decisions, you will only have regret. And so I'll never forget the time when I saw Shannon in the kitchen. We were all going to have a big meal over at this friend's house, and she was washing something I can't remember, and I walked in with the ring, and I went down on one knee. And this is after we had already patched everything up, so this is the proposal that stuck, right? And I proposed to her. And I had absolute confidence that she would say yes, because we were both now in a place in our lives where instead of putting all of our eggs in one basket, and that basket is a weak, broken person like me or like her, we put our eggs together in God's basket, which is a weird kind of analogy right there at the end. We put it all on God. We were betting people, and we bet it all on God. Because here's the good thing about our God. The Father has a plan for your life and for my life. And that is a plan that is as real as the cross and the empty tomb. And if you have a faith that is as big as to believe that God became man, became bread, so that I could be nourished by His very life, then why would that God turn His back on you about your marriage, about your relationships? But you got to give them something to be blessed. You got to give them something that is blessable. You can't sit there and build something up on lies, even if it's self-deceiving. No, I love her. No, I love her. No, I love her. I really do. I really promise myself I do. Why am I not getting this? I really do love her. And you manipulate yourself. Like I said this before, we're the greatest salesmen to ourselves, right? We'll buy any lie as long as we're the ones selling it to ourselves. And so many relationships stay together because of that. But you right now, if you're single, you have the ability to start uprooting these lies and start pursuing the truth. Christian marriage is a lifelong promise. Till death do you part. That means that from now until either one of us die, we are married to each other, for good or for bad. For richer, or because we work for the church, for poorer. In sickness and in health. I just want to end on one thought for you. And Shannon talked about identity, I think last week, was Alex and Dan, right? Shared about identity. Oh, there you are. Woo, he's in the darkness.
Yes. My name is Jonathan, yes.
Okay. Still good looking, right? When we start with our identity, if you know who you are, and you start with your identity, and that identity is someone as big as God, not physically big, but when God is your identity, is the rock upon which your life, the house of your life is built, then this is the good news. Then you have a stable enough foundation to put your heart out there, to risk it all on building a bridge to another world, to another person, so that you can challenge faith itself, so that you can challenge all the bad statistics in the world, so that you can challenge the entire current of your culture, so that you can stand in the face of 1,000 lies and say the words, the two words that will change your life forever. I do. And the reason why you can say I do is because when you're in your 20s and when you're in your 30s, is because when you were in your teenage years, you developed the ability, the strength to say yes to the most important things and no to everything else. Because, and I'm going to tell you, this is ending on a chastity note, talking about training for marriage. Things like pornography, things like friends with benefits and all that stuff, that trains you to be unable to say no. And that means that your yes is worthless. That's kind of a harsh thing to say, so I'm going to say it again. So the harshness, I don't know. Hits you again? Okay. Your yes is only as good, is only as strong, is only as meaningful as your ability to say no. Because if you can't say no, then your yes, my yes, is worthless. God had to prune away all the crap in my life that prevented me from saying no in a powerful way, so that one day, standing in front of Shannon, I could say the two words that is the love language of Christian matrimony, which is I do. And I was able to do that. And it changed my life forever. Mostly because